On today's episode of Business Growth Talks, we're thrilled to welcome Tim Branyan, who's a dynamic problem solver, seasoned entrepreneur, and proud USAF combat veteran. Air Force. With a proven track record of successfully leading and exiting 3 ventures, Tim brings a wealth of experience into custom software development, project management, and brand consultancy. Currently, as a coordinating manager at SBDC, he's dedicated to helping businesses thrive. Join us as we talk about Tim's journey and uncover his business insights and learn how he challenges into winning with his clients. Welcome to Business Growth Talks, the podcast that tackles the tough realities of growing a business. I'm Mark Hayward, and if you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure of your next steps, you're in the right place. Each week, I bring you the real strategies that successful entrepreneurs have used to push past difficulties, boost revenue, and build a stronger, more profitable business. Scaling up, keeping customers, managing cash flow, and building a team is tough, and the stakes are high. Our guests share what worked, what didn't, and the critical lessons learned along the way. Stay tuned for strategies, insights, and advice you need to tackle challenges head on and take your business to new heights. If you're ready to grow, strengthen, and succeed, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, Tim. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome, Mark. Thanks again for having me on the show.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show today. We're going to be delving into, I really find it fascinating that you've had 3 exits from 3 different businesses, which is no mean feat at all. We'll talk about your current role at the moment. I know you're helping entrepreneurs and business owners there, so we will cover all of that. First question that I ask all of my guests is, what does a business mindset mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really don't exclude anyone from the entrepreneur or business sort of, title. I think we all have the ability to be entrepreneurial and creative. And I think a business mindset to me is someone that's thinking about solving problems. And, the hope is as they're thinking about solving problems, they're asking, why is this solution the logical choice? Because that's very service oriented to have that mentality and sort of heart or mind posture. So I think, in short, having a business mindset is thinking about solving problems and making chief aim service.
So let's just explore this problem solving. So when I was doing research on you, you pride yourself as being a problem solver. Why do you think, because also words like curiosity comes up with that question, as well as service, but problem solving actually doesn't come up as regularly as I might imagine it to do, because essentially when you're working in a business, growing your business, you are solving problems, whether they are daily problems, weekly problems, monthly problems, or whatever. So why do you put so much emphasis on that idea?
Yeah, so I think I've never once set out to have a really good idea. I think it's a gift of God that I'm able to see where things could be faster, or see where things need to slow down, or see where there's inefficiencies. I'm really good at seeing maybe a production line, or seeing how somebody's operations are currently operating, and finding ways that those could be improved. Specifically, throughout my professional career has been with technology. So now with like the dawn of AI, I feel like that's even improved, like all the different automations and things that we can add to an existing operating system or an existing sort of workflow. I think I'm good at finding opportunities for innovation, and it starts by seeing what sucks. That's the yeah. That's what
I think that's a really good, because as when people are sort of coaching or consulting, you sometimes have to tell people their babies are ugly, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, there oftentimes when there's a nice way to tell somebody that they've got broccoli in their teeth, right? Or they've got a booger on their nose. And really, truly, I think it's lovingly. If you care enough to tell your friend that they've got broccoli in their teeth, right? It's the opposite of that is not saying anything at all. So, when I'm identifying opportunities, I think typically I bring it up in a way that, hey, have you heard of this? Hey, have you seen this? Or hey, what would it mean if we were able to do things this way or save here? Um, and typically, I try to enlist people into the solution, and that really simplifies. I'm doing it for them, but I'm also doing it for me as well, because it simplifies uh, the cross communication. So, for example, if there's a software that we're building, or there's a concept to a software, if I can enlist someone into describing and talking about problems and an ideal solution, that makes my job 10,000 times easier when I'm designing
Yeah.
or building out features or functionality, because they're giving me the answers to the test. So one of these things we always have is, hey, we listen with the intent to engineer, and it's truly that simple. When we ask
Mm,
the right questions, it gets people to divulge what sucks, and that helps with feature building. So
yeah, amazing. Thank you. Um, so you were in the US Air Force
mhm.
for how many years?
I've lived here my whole life. When I was in the military, I traveled around. I was out of the military. I lived in the desert for about 4.5, 5 years in total. Some good
Wow.
places, some bad places, but man, I'm just thankful for my time in the military. I feel like it gave me a lot of characteristics and disciplines, and a sense of purpose that I never really had, growing up.
Right. So how do you feel that it's helped you as an entrepreneur?
Oh, geez. I mean, adapt and overcome. I mean, in the military, in my job as a military police officer, and that put me, when I was at base or garrison, my job was to do law enforcement or entry exit security, kind of a glorified mall cop at the younger age. And we worked dispatch, and we had typical sort of cop work. But when I went overseas, my job would change. Right, we did personnel security detail. I kept people and things safe, and throughout all my training in the military, it was really all centered around either uh, executing a target, eliminating an enemy, or surviving, staying alive, in a threat situation. So when the stakes are really high, I think attention to detail is it's almost manufactured. You're kind of, you know, you're molded in this sort of military mindset to adapt and overcome. So specifically, I think, if there's one key area that I learned or really started to refine in the military, it was um, adapting to hostile situations. And fortunately in business, I'm not getting shot at, so the stakes are maybe a little lower. But I feel like that's what trained me a ton, is just being in the service and learning how to fail enthusiastically, have contingency plans, and ultimately be able to adjust if needed.
So do you think the ability to process, make decisions in hostile, high risk situations. You said you're in a lower risk situation running businesses, which obviously no one's going to shoot
Thank
you.
God.
Um, but do you think that whole idea of being in a hostile environment and dealing with those stresses means that when you're in civilian life, when you're in business world, you are better prepared because you've made decisions, rightly or wrongly, but made those decisions in a hostile environment?
Oh, certainly, certainly, yeah. And I mean, the same thing's true. I think I've been blessed to meet a lot of different friends and people in business, and it's always fascinating or interesting to me to learn. Where did you come from? How did you get into this? How are you still here? Knowing how challenging it is to hurdle obstacles and adapt and fail forward enthusiastically, and all the gamut of things that comes in the entrepreneurial world. So, like, what I've noticed is athletes, people that did solo sports or that did team sports at a high level, they develop grit. They develop some of this can-do
Mhm.
attitude and the characteristics that I think yield success. Same thing's true with folks in the military sometimes, and then also just folks in general that have maybe went through something challenging. It seems to be this sort of incubation environment, which helps them develop the characteristics and the skills to go out and achieve their definition of success. Um, so yeah, that's
I
been
think
my
that's really important. What people's definition of success, like that's actually like, and I feel sometimes people's uh, aspirations, ambitions are a little bit confused because they think it's a number, like a net worth or a revenue for their business. And actually, when and this might be what you're helping your people that you're helping in your current role, actually working out what they actually do want can be different to what they start in with what they think their aspiration is.
totally, yeah. And as I'm advising clients or working with different business owners or employers in the network, oftentimes, if they're startup, I start to just ask them questions like, what does success mean to you, right? And help them not only like define how much they want to make, but more importantly, who do they want to become, and what's the perfect day, week, month, year start to look like, and then kind of reverse engineer it. Then we set up steps or different reads that they can have, different books they can throw on their library. But success I believe it's a moving target and a moving definition. So even
Yes.
setting the mind frame up when we're doing a business plan, or what I call a vision plan with
Mm,
entrepreneurs, is we establish the reality that, hey, this is going to change, and that's okay,
mm,
man. Like, this is your painting, this is your picture,
yeah.
and it's okay to change. And in your definition of success, your definition of your numbers, and who your ideal client is, like, this is a moldable sort
Yeah.
of vision plan, and give them the freedom and flexibility really to realize that definition can change. Um,
So you started your three businesses that you've exited. They were all in technology, were they?
yes. Yep.
And so what made you, apart from the obvious that it's a booming area, a booming niche, what made you get into technology?
No, great question. So, I was 30 miles north of Iraq in a control tower. It was mid June, probably 120 degrees outside. And in this gun tower, you got to literally climb 20 different ladder rungs to get up to here. I had a little puck of Wi Fi and my cracked laptop screen. And personally, like inside of me, I was restless and discontent. I was making amazing money working in support of the Department of Defense as a civilian. I was able to travel, but I feel like expiring almost, like in this deployed environment. I'd been there for years, and I was so ready for change. It was just a feeling of restless and discontent. I remember, maybe people have felt this before. I remember seeing quotes about time, and I would get sick to my stomach. I would feel a frog in my throat and almost want to tear up. And it was that feeling that drove me to start asking questions that I think changed my life. So I started asking, okay, well, what can I do? What are the controllables? What are the non-controllables? And it was that sort of catalyst, that ugly feeling, that back against the wall feeling, that trajected me into change. So I used to feel empathetic for people that were going through this. Now I love it. I'm like, let's go. Okay, cool. You're actually ready. Here's some good advice that you should start doing. Ask yourself questions, right? You start to define at that moment. For me specifically, I started to figure out, okay, well, what do I want to make? And at the time I was thinking, well, even if I make half the money that I'm making now, but I can own my time and start to control
Mm,
some of the situations that I'm in, and things that I do and don't do, that's a win. So, then I started to really define, okay, well, what is success to me? Do I want to manage a lot of people? No, I don't. I saw that as being a pain in the ass. I saw, managing personnel and doing HR stuff would not fit well with me. I wanted to also limit risk. I didn't have millions and millions of dollars or backing, or have any clue how to ask for money or get funding. So I thought, well, it needs to be within sort of this budget for my own personal risk tolerance. And that was
mm,
like 30 to 50 grand was really kind of my risk tolerance. Um, what ended up, long story short, what made sense to me was tech. I could distribute it globally. I could solve problems for people in a certain niche. I could adapt it. I didn't have to have some huge staff. I didn't have to have a major like customer support center. I knew I could outsource things. The one thing that I was missing, which is important to know, like know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, was developers. So I
yeah.
gave myself permission to start. And fast forward, I failed. I probably should have went to college and got a formal education. I didn't. I spent a lot of money failing and learning and
Yeah.
adapting. And I'm still, learning and growing now. But that was really kind of the catalyst. Getting into the tech industry was knowing what, quote unquote, rich was to me at the time, and what I was aiming for. That's really what set up the building blocks to a plan that I actively worked on, literally every day. It was an escape. So I was working
Yeah.
my job and minding my freedom.
Right. And so you set up a social media content creators business, and you set up a project manager and product management business.
Mm-hmm.
So, like social media, that was 2019. You started that, so it was an established area. Social media was what we all knew that Facebook had been around for 10 years or whatever, and so how did you work those businesses and grow them to the stage where you were able to exit?
Yeah. So again, I never set out to have a great idea. I just saw what people were interested in, what the market wanted. Um, and this is still relevant, I guess, today with as it pertains to social media. But people wanted more traffic. They wanted more attention. They wanted to advertise their stuff. And the manual ways that you could do that literally today is go engage with your ideal client or your ideal business that you want to vertically sell to. You can write comments that were thought provoking. You can like their stuff. You can send them messages. You can
Mm,
view their stories. So years ago, we developed a platform that automated those efforts, that allowed somebody to be omnipresent to a filtered
mm.
audience database. Unknowingly, we did so in violation of Facebook's terms, and
Oh,
I learned a lesson about what a cease and desist was, and I had to adapt from that and really ask the question: okay, who are we going to be? And I share that story because it's real, and I have
mm,
not been this pure success story. I've been kicked in the face, and taught lessons through real pain and real tears and real just commitment to continue, right, to adapt. So uh, that platform was awesome. It did really well. When I exited it to a friend, fully aware of what had happened, what's going on. Hey, here's some tech here. Here's some components here. Here's what it was doing. We're out. Um, best of success. Kind of left that, and that was
does
that
it
was
still
a pivotal
exist?
time.
Does it still exist?
No, well, I have no idea at this point.
Okay.
It probably, I mean, things that we developed probably, maybe you're still out there or somebody learned from them.
Mm,
It was a really awesome thing, and hindsight, looking back, now where I'm at, would I've maybe fought that? I think I would have. Nowadays, just because I'm more aware of consumer rights, I'm more aware of my own
right.
rights, and I have attorneys. Of this is it's yeah, I'm well versed at this point, um, and I would have probably stood up for what I believe is right, what's truth. So back in the
And
day,
then
it
what
was not
about
that way.
and then what about Logic Square Technologies?
Yeah. So sort of a longer story short, when I set out to develop my first build, a slew of different learning experience or failures were trying to find a development team that was ethical, that was capable, that could help me bring this idea that I thought was good to life. And I failed. I got scammed for $35,000. That was months of time that nothing ever came to fruition. Again, luckily I had some risk tolerance. I was smarter there. Um, Ultimately, again, kind of fast forward, I met the team at Logic Square as a customer first. And
Okay.
what I realized is that a lot of people have tried to build software, but it never leaves the shipyard. It never launches because it's really hard to find capable teams to bring ideas to life and eliminate some of the ambiguity. I think that's the biggest killer of, if you're trying to bring a software to life, if there's any uncertainty, or if you and your developers are on different paths, you're going to end up at different destinations. And that often costs a lot of money, and it costs time. And, I only know this because I've been there and done it, spent the money.
Mm,
Um, so I started out as a customer and then gradually became just a proponent and a referral partner. I shared enthusiastic, authentic reviews, and then I had a conversation with my CTO. Now, like, hey man, I think there's opportunity here. Um, let's build. More and more people started asking if we could do this for them. At first, I was like, I did some for friends, family, acquaintances, and then it's gradually developed into doing builds for larger companies, successful entrepreneurs, and then now the government. I mean, we do builds for the Department of Veteran Affairs. We do builds for the National Guard, and we're able to solve problems. Some are complex, some are really simple for uh, yeah different support services now in the country, and that's been an awesome learning experience. Teaming with different companies and going through the compliance regulations to be certified to do business with the federal government and kind of learn that hustle. It truly is like challenge one is getting certified and approved. Challenge two is then developing relationships where you get a chance to get up to bat and show your capability and actually serve alongside of a project and then take one on
Oh,
yourself.
government contracts
Um,
can be a nightmare to. I've never entered into these sorts of arrangements, but from friends and people that I know, like government contracts, like the amount of paperwork and the justification and the explanation of what you need to do, it's well beyond a business plan, isn't it?
it's very different than selling to a regular customer.
Yeah.
Very different.
Or even another business,
Yeah.
even a B2B business, it's a completely, you can go into a transaction with them, where government contracts. So what would you say in all of your three different
Mhm.
businesses? What would you say your biggest challenge has actually been, and how did you overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge is just self-belief, and I'm still overcoming it, right? Like I may come off as confident or I may come off as like I've got everything together. That's just not true, right? So if I can be authentic, there are moments even before this podcast, you get on, you're like, man, am I even a subject matter expert? Like he's gonna share this tidbit about me. Like, is that it's imposter syndrome, and I think that's
Mm,
it's gradually been improved over time. Like stacking evidence and stacking belief gives you permission to start elevating yourself. There's also just different things that we've made up in our own heads and our own hearts about who we are and who we're not, and that has taken years for me just to one identify and like do that mental work. The
mm,
term mental health freaks out a lot of us guys. I'm in that same boat. I'm a military guy. That's a career killer. But there's so much value. We'll call it the mental gym. When you get into the
mm,
mental gym and you start
mm, mm.
unpacking just your workout routines and where they came from and what's going on like in this mental gym for yourself and the stories that you're telling yourself internally. A quick sort of thought is like we're all pretty good at like serving other people, whether you have kids or someone in your
Yeah.
office or people. It's like we make it our job to look after them and make sure they're okay and make sure that they're aligned
Mm.
with good. Very few of us make it our job to love ourselves and like monitor the value that we're sharing in our own head with
Right,
ourselves.
I'm with you here. I find a trouble. Like I don't mind helping people and supporting people and encouraging people and all those things,
Mhm.
but sometimes looking after yourself can be the hardest thing.
Definitely, it
Bec
is.
but why do you think that? Because I don't know if that's a male trait. I'm probably ostracizing all of my female audience here, but it feels like it's a male trait that we don't necessarily look after ourselves because we're the provider.
Mm,
Why do you think, and what do you think we can do as entrepreneurs and business owners
mm.
to make sure that we're regulating and checking in on ourselves as well?
Yeah. I think it's just it's human beings in general. Like we need community, we need connection, and we need
Yeah.
authenticity. I think authenticity and vulnerability is really hard for everyone, but I think specifically men. It's very hard for somebody to come on or talk with you, whether in person or in a group, and say, "Hey, man, I struggle with alcoholism. Like this is something that's pulling me down." Or, "Hey, man, pornography has been just a distraction and a shame filled thing in my life and in my heart, and I just want to throw this out there. I'm looking for help." Like seeking help is an uncomfortable
Mm.
thing. in life, but I promise it's freeing. And
Mm,
for anybody that's listening that's struggling with things, and now more than ever, the data's out. Now more than ever, it's like there are people that are in bad situations quietly. Like,
yeah.
don't be quiet. Get involved in community. Get involved in a men's group. Get involved in or a women's group too. I mean, just get around people that you can know, like, and trust. Like, find your community. I love church. That's me. I'm a Christian guy. Like, I've found a round table group of guys that we do open heart surgery, quote unquote, on one another, man. Like,
Right.
we'll talk about high lows. We'll talk about business. We'll talk about family. We'll talk about, spouses and our wives and such. And it's been so great, man, just to have a place where we can air out, classified laundry, if you will, and just get
Mm, mm.
real and get solutions, get help, get prayer. And so that'd be my recommendation: is don't be, especially for my military brothers too. I know we do this often because we're the men, but don't be isolated. Nothing good happens whether you're on the battlefield or whether you're on the business field when you're alone. My thought.
And business, being a business owner on your own can be an incredibly lonely
Mm,
experience. And I think you're absolutely right. The community connection is so important. Now, I have a lot of people in my life, but there's only a small group of people that I would generally say they're my friends, that I could talk about anything
hmm
with them. But it is still important to have those people in your lives, isn't it? And it's like a lot of people sometimes lose those connections and then become, and that's why suicide in men is the highest, the biggest killer, because often we get isolated and don't continue to work on that effort to have meaningful relationships. We can have good relationships, but meaningful relationships.
Dude, I love that you said that, Mark. And this, I want to just share that you're not alone. We're all
Yeah,
going through the same, or we will. There will be other people that empathize and understand your story way more than you think that you're special in the sense that you're the only one going through the thing that you're going through. That was the biggest relief for me when I aired
mm,
my dirty laundry and explained the
mm,
things that were bringing me shame and turmoil in my
mm,
life, man,
mm,
was just being radically honest and
mm,
being authentic and accountable. Um,
mm.
it changed the script that I was telling myself, that I thought I was the only one. And it's just not true. There's many,
Yeah,
many others that are in the same boat. They're just waiting on someone to be authentic and vulnerable. And that's
yeah,
where, we talk about innovation, we talk about entrepreneurship, we're talking about business, but it's like vulnerability, I think, is the catalyst to innovation
yeah.
because it allows
Well,
that
just think
open door.
about it. Just think about the whole point, because getting a good business idea, you're actually looking at someone's pain points, something that they're struggling with, something they can't develop, they're struggling to be able to build.
Mm,
And that's where a lot of successful businesses can come in. And actually, the vulnerability, the pain points that actually people can't solve, you can come in and solve them and create a business around that.
yeah, by the grace of God, hopefully. That's the aim, typically.
Yeah, that's the aim. Yes, absolutely. Right, let's move on to your current role at the Indiana Small Business Development Center. So, after running three businesses, exiting three different companies, what made you take on this role, and who do you serve and who do you work with?
Yeah. So I was in this building. I'm at the Inventrek Technology Park here in Kokomo, Indiana, where I live. And I there's a co-working studio downstairs. So imagine kind of a wide open space. There's couches and tables and Wi-Fi. Right, people can get coffee. And um,
Mm,
in the corner, there's a logo that says SBDC, and a new guy that I hadn't met before. His name is Jordan. He's out of New York. And we would pass each other in the hallway and say, hey. And then eventually, we started talking about sports. We started talking about life. And finally, after I think it was months, I asked him, well, what do you do, man? Like, just curious, what is this SBDC thing that's on your door? And he said, oh,
mm,
that's the Small Business Development Center. I was like, okay, what do you guys do? He's like, well, we help people start, grow, or exit their business at no cost. It's all funded through the state and the SBA at a national level. And I get to work with entrepreneurs every day and help them with different obstacles or pain points they have. And it's been pretty great. was like, dude, that sounds amazing. Why didn't I know about you guys 13 years ago when I was starting my business? Like, this is cool. I was like, can you, let's set up a session, right? And I want to just see the process and better understand. Maybe there's some areas where you guys can help me. This is who I am, what I do. So I started out as a client of the SBDC and found out just kind of the registration process, and you get to interface with an advisor in person or through a screen, and really just kind of vent or share line items maybe that you need help with, that you're stuck, or things that you're trying to do. And they literally, have a whole network of professionals at a national level, certification programs and educational training and events. And it's just such an amazing way for entrepreneurs to get in the way of opportunity. I loved it as a client. Fast forward, saw that there was a job opening. It was literally describing everything that I was already doing with connecting people in
Mm,
organizations to
mm,
entrepreneur support. Because folks ask me often, they're, what's an LLC, or how do I do this? How do I do this? So, prayed on it with my wife about a year and a half ago now, started with the SBDC. Now I work for the SBDC and Indiana Economic Development Corporation, similar mission. And I love it, man. I get to help entrepreneurs. I've got some of my own success stories now where we've helped people get certified or go on to create bigger businesses or get aligned with the right people they needed to meet for manufacturing or for distributing products around the globe. There's a global sort of opportunity there. They help package their stuff and go through a lot of things that are over my head. But the beauty is, man, it's just nice to have a network, and
mm,
I love the mission. So
mm,
that's really how I got into it. That's where I'm at now. And what's been awesome, man, is who I've become just learning about grants, learning about uh, all these different events and resources in the state specifically,
mm,
where I'm just more helpful. And I love
mm.
to learn with the intent to share. So this has been an amazing role. One of my favorite jobs I've ever had is
So what's it like having a job again after being your own boss?
um, I hope
Or
I'm
is it the
really good
mission
at
that
it. I
drives
feel
you?
like I have an unfair advantage because I know what it feels like to be the guy that needs things done.
Yeah.
And I know I understand just my role really well, who I am, who I'm not. I've loved that part, that I'm just,
Mm,
I'm lower on the totem pole. I'm not the chief. So I've really enjoyed that aspect. If something's wrong, it's not on me. Hey, I don't have to go to that meeting. Um, but I think I've really enjoyed it. Two, uh, I think I'm doing a good job. Uh, yeah, I always hope to do a really good job. I mean, that's the chief aim, but I think it's
yeah.
been great. I've enjoyed it. It also adds benefits that I never had before, right? I was always paying out of pocket for health insurance and different coverages.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's been just a blessing for my family and I, and yeah, it's opened a lot of cool doors.
So give me an example of a client that you've worked with that you've been able to solve a problem that they were struggling with.
Yeah, so one recently wanted to do business with the federal government. You know, they had gotten their SAM account, sam.gov, right? They needed to refresh that every year. You need to go through and just update or refresh. But they were struggling with the connection piece. They want to learn how to go out and sell and get awards, and how do I submit an RFI or an RFP, and what's the strategy here? Who do I need to know? The hustle side. So
Mm,
step one was to help them get certified, recertified, and then the second step was just to connect them to the right people who are door openers here in the state, and different support organizations that they can get in the way of. One of which is called Apex Accelerator. Um, and yeah, from there, he's now attending the right meetings. He's now submitting the right RFIs to the right people. And the
mm.
hope is that he lands a massive contract. That'd be, I'll celebrate and belly bump with him. Little chest bump.
How do you
I guess
think?
his belly
How
is.
do you think you? How do you think you've evolved as an entrepreneur through all of your experiences since leaving the military?
Oh, man. Just my definite, we talked about success changing. My definition of success has changed vastly. I kind of tell a story, I guess, to describe it. I was on my couch. We had just hit a multi-million dollar mark in one of my companies, and I just felt empty. It's like, okay, well, now what? Um, does this never end? You just keep going, you just keep making more dollars, and I can't, can I be a super CEO? What's the next title after here? So it's just restless discontent, and I just prayed, man. I was like, hey, God, if you're listening and if you're hearing me, help me do what brings you joy, and I just want some fulfillment. I want to feel as though I'm aligned with my purpose, and that was a big catalyst to change in my life. Rededicated my life to Jesus, and it added a ton of purpose to my work. So instead of working for mankind or working for dollars, I call it kingdom work, but I'm able to align my gifts, talents as a form of stewardship.
Mm.
And I pray before podcasts and meetings, and it's changed my life as a dad, it's changed my life as a husband, changed my life as an entrepreneur. I'm loving people, but I don't think I'm being led by Tim. My hope is to be led by the Spirit and align again those gifts, talents to glorify God. Um, it is an ever, how do I even describe it? It's an ever going sort of like aim, right? So this is kind of a way that I think about it. It's like the NASA mission was only on target to the moon 3% of the time. I feel like that's like my walk with Christianity. It's like I'm trying to stay on trajectory, but I'm
Mm.
often off. And that's where like prayer and realization like puts me back on target to the quote unquote moon, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's been my walk, but that was never the case. I studied success for years, and the guys that I admired the most, or the gals, whomever, people in business I admired the most, would always tell me, hey, this is who I am. These are the awesome things I've done. Here's this. And I would admire them like crazy. But then they would also tell me like, I have a relationship with Jesus, and that's the core of like me. And it would go over my head. I wouldn't listen, like truly. I heard them, but I was like, yeah. I kind of grew up in that. The whole church thing, so, angels singing, that's kind of creeps me out. I didn't get it until later on in life. And now it's like, okay, what is rich? To me, it's fulfillment and alignment with my purpose, which I believed is Christ ordained.
So so this purpose, so you say it's ordained by God, by Christ.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to distill what your purpose is now,
Mm-hmm.
is it service to others?
So my purpose is to uh, walk humbly, right, with Christ. I mean, be in active prayer. I call it staying by the river. And I tend to believe that what emanates from me, what opportunities come my way, are due to being spirit led. I know it maybe sounds a little bit crazy, but yeah, man,
No, to be honest, Tim, this won't work for everyone that's listening to the show, and I'm cool with that, and I don't want to divert you away from your message and your mission and your purpose,
sure,
which is obviously incredibly important to you. There will be people that will be switching off this show and just going, I don't like
yeah.
it. I'm going to move on
What's
to
that guy?
something. I'm going to move on to Joe Rogan interviewing Donald Trump
Sure.
or whatever it is.
Yeah, I guess my
But it is
sincerest
important.
hope for those folks is just I guess one thing, like I live the polar opposite way, right? Like I've lived totally worldly where I chased women, I drank booze, smoked weed. I've just lived very much in my flesh, and I didn't disciple or discipline my life. The,
Mm,
in my pursuit for success as a man with my short time here on earth,
mm,
my experience has been way more bountiful and
yeah.
truly exciting
Mm,
being aligned with a disciplined or discipled way
yeah.
of life through the Christian
Yeah.
faith and my learning of it. So this isn't to, I'm always going to share what I think are good things. That's just me
No,
as
absolutely.
human. But I hope it does, I don't want to throw somebody out the way just because you're not
No,
that
no.
faith.
And to be honest, if people have logged off from this conversation, then that's their loss because there is definitely something there, and I'm absolutely on board with it. What would you say your risk appetite is now?
Oh, geez, it's honestly pretty low, man. It's still pretty low, and I think part of that is I grew up, low middle class, loving the family, but not a lot of dollars. And if it was meant to be, it was going to be up to me to some sense when I was trying to get a car, trying to buy shoes, or getting the
Mm.
clothes I wanted. And I think those experiences now, they changed my perspective, which I've kind of brought them along. But I'm very tactical to avoid risk and increase potential, like profit outcomes. So whether that be reviewing an opportunity and making sure that it's valuable on all these different sort of parameters I'm looking at. It needs to be scalable. It needs to be, the commission needs to be high if we're going to refer or promote something. It needs to be valuable, right? And in all senses of that word, just kind of a microscope that we'll look at opportunities with. But as far as building something, I probably could do a better job, like looking at analytics and data. But oftentimes, if we're building something at this point, it's because we need it. And we know that if we need it, other people would probably want it. And we
Yeah.
build it in a way that we can clone it or
Yeah.
resell it. So there's very limited risk. It's like, we're already going to pay for this thing anyway. We want our own custom CRM or whatever it is that we're building.
Yeah.
Let's build it in a way that if somebody else wants it, we can quickly kind of clone it, low cost, and then sell them a sort of custom solution that they need. So nowadays, the risk is, it's still low. I don't like a lot of risk. I don't want to gamble.
That's fair enough. No, that's fair enough.
And I
Um,
typically teach. So a lot of the folks that are brand new startups that are coming into our world at the SBDC, I teach them to limit risk, because a lot of them have $0 at all. They've got an idea, and it may be a great idea. It may need refined. But I typically teach them how to create an offer that people are dumb to say no to. It needs to be a really great product or
yeah.
service. And then once you've got that, create one sales channel. And I typically preach or teach how to do direct outreach, because it's
Mm.
free
Mm.
outside of
Mm.
spending time and some elbow grease, like targeting your ideal prospects or persons. And once they can prove that that works, they can create a sale. Then we just
Mm.
show them how to scale that, or how to outsource that
Mm.
with VAs or a low cost option, interns, etc.
Yeah.
And then once we can get them those stacked wins, that creates momentum and some
Yeah.
dollars in their bank. And then we can start to use some of those dollars for maybe ads or other sort of PR marketing opportunities for them. So I just like to limit
Yeah.
risk, and it helps people stay in the game versus
Yeah.
stressing out because money's due.
Yeah. Look, we could go on for another hour, absolutely, Tim. But I want to go on to the last 6 questions that I ask all of my guests. They're quickfire questions. They don't need a quickfire answer.
Okay.
The first question is, what's the best decision that you've made?
The best decision I ever made was rededicating my life to Jesus Christ. And easily changed everything. I know that was
What's
fast. My bad.
No, that's fine. It's all good. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
What's the best piece of advice? I've probably forgotten. Man, I should have wrote that down. No, I think early on, it's like, you belong exactly where you choose to be. It was this ownership sort of quote. It's like, you belong exactly where you choose to be. Just puts the ball back in my court. When I was thinking about it, it's like, man, sure, there's things that happen externally that are unfavorable, but where am I going to choose to move after it starts raining? So yeah, you belong exactly where you choose to be. I can't remember who told me that quote. Is that like an event? It just
So that whole idea of choosing, so because one of the most popular things that you're the sum of the total of the 5 people you spend most of the time with, and in essence, that's a choice that you're choosing who to spend the time with. That gives you that ethos. I'm just trying to explore that idea of
yeah, I think it's
how we break that down. How will people listen to that and then go, actually, my choice of where I am currently is not where I want to be, and I want to make that change.
Yeah, so we're in control of how often we scroll on our phones versus how often we turn pages in books that we've chosen to have. We can choose if we go on to Eventbrite and schedule, networking events and put time on our calendar. We're in control if we go and visit the SBDC and set up a consultation and meeting and we can control getting in the way of opportunity. It's the same way that we can control going to the bar, right? It's just your intentionality. What is your chief aim? Because I think that becomes your manifestation. So whether it's subconscious or conscious, my hope is that every one of us carves out the distractionless free time to start planning the controllables, right? Like, what are your daily habits? Your habits become your rituals become these decisions, and your decisions are going to decide your destiny. So when I say, like, we belong exactly where we choose to be, getting within your operating system, your brain, and starting to decide what your daily rituals or nightly rituals are going to be, that is you investing in the person or the outcome that you're aiming for. But we're all so distracted, man, and me to be included, that we fail sometimes to create that plan. And that's really where it starts.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for explaining that. Who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
Let's see. I'm going to talk about a physical person, not just, I could say Jesus. That'd be an easy one. But I think, so I've got a business partner that I've done a lot of different platforms with and different opportunities. His name's Logan. And Logan has kept me sharp over the years. He calls me out on things that maybe I'm doing or not doing that I should be. He's been really like a brother figure. I'm not just a business partner, but somebody that I'd consider like a close brotherly friend. And even competition, right? Like, we'll have friendly competitions, and somebody that's helped me stay sharp as I've gotten older. I'm 35 years old. I've got 2 kids now. I've got different responsibilities. Someone that's been in my corner has been Logan, and I'm thankful for that. Him and others like him. But yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Tell me about a regret that you have.
Gosh. I don't really dwell or think on like regret. I think about the learning experiences from them. I guess if I could go back in time, it's not really, again, at this point, it's not a regret. It's happened, but I would. So I guess I'll explain the backstory. There was a time where I was trying to develop software with the wrong quarterback, if you will. I kept him in the game too long because I knew his capability, but he wasn't actually throwing touchdowns in games for over a year. And I kept him in, and keeping him in was a detriment to the entire team and the bank account. And what I learned, something that I don't regret, but what I learned in it was crucial conversations are vital, and they need to be had. If you truly love your team and you want to win games, you got to put the right people in the game and ultimately get the wrong people out of the game quickly and efficiently. And that was a painful lesson. So while I don't regret, a few years ago I would say I regret this, but now, since identifying it and playing with it, I've since learned from it. It still stings, like looking back at it, but yeah.
Hiring and firing is the most difficult job.
Especially if you
100%.
care. I mean, I care about people, but it changed the way that I do onboarding. It's like now we set expectations really early, so I don't have to fire somebody. They would have already fired themselves through a 3-strike rule. And, the expectations are very clear in the beginning. Hey, this is who you are. This is what you do. Here's what great looks like. Here's what bad looks like. If you stay here too long, you'll get this, and then you'll let yourself go. But I promise we will have a conversation before that happens. But now it's like, and I haven't had to do it. It's made it a lot easier to show people expectations because we've already signed off on that at the start of our engagement together.
Yeah. What are you most proud of?
Man, I'm proud of my kids right now. They're healthy. they're happy, we're investing in their experiences, and they'll outlive me, right? So it's fun to think about just who they're becoming,
Mm.
and being present even when I'm really tired. I'm proud of just how I've been a dad recently. It hasn't been through their whole life. I mean, it's just been really in the last like 2 years. Just proud of my wife and I, and just how we've developed a strategy and like planning on how, how we're going to invest in our kids, and just
Mm.
kind of seeing some of the benefits of that. We put together. It's funny, like yeah, I've written plenty of business plans and written mission statements and developed logos and put together handbooks and this and that, but I never did it for my family. I didn't know what it meant to be a Branyan. What are our negotiable or our non-negotiables?
Mm.
What are we about? What are we not
Mm.
about? What's our last name,
Mm.
mean to
Mm.
us? And
Mm.
I've since done that. We've put together. It's not a business plan. It's just our non-negotiables and our sort of mission statement, and how
Mm.
we conduct business in the house and how we conduct business when we leave the house with other people,
Yeah.
and what's important.
Yeah.
And setting up these routines, morning, night, midday, um, has been awesome for our production, or our
Yeah.
sort of
Mm.
family orchestra.
Yeah.
One example of that is at 6 o'clock at night, I am not reachable. You can't reach me. My phone is literally off, which before I'd never turned my phone off, but
Mm.
6 to 9:30, I'm a ghost, and my wife is too. It's just little things like that you can add to your
Mm.
family, whatever your plan looks like.
Whatever works. Amazing.
Yeah.
Tell me something that most people don't know about you.
Um, Man, I'm a pretty open book. Let's see. I think maybe what I shared earlier is that I do have fears and feelings of inadequacies. I think it's easy for maybe somebody, I think, from the outside looking in would maybe assume that that I've got this stuff figured out. It's like that's the furthest thing from the truth. Or maybe people in my world, they I hope they admire me, but I don't want anybody to think that I have it all figured out. I definitely don't. And my flaws are probably very similar to theirs,
Mm.
as
Mm.
far as the feelings of inadequacies, suffering from depression at times, right? Like being in a low, that's
Mm.
happened. I think the reason that I'm able to like to a certain level, like genuinely love people, is because I've felt what they've felt. Like I just don't
Mm.
know their story, right? So it's like I've been afraid. I know what that feels like. So do you, right? So does everybody listening.
Mm.
I know
Mm.
what it
Mm.
feels like to fall in love.
Mm.
I've done that. I've been there. I know what it feels to have your heart broken. Been there too.
Mm.
I can
Mm.
relate to that. I get it.
Yep.
And because of all
Yep.
these things, man, like I love you genuinely, but I don't know your full story. I'd love to know everybody's. I genuinely do find interest in knowing people's stories, but um, yeah, I guess the thing that people don't know about me is maybe that I genuinely
Yeah.
love them. Like that's
Mm.
a real thing, even if we're vastly different. It's like
Mm.
I know things that make us common as human.
Yeah. Yeah. What does legacy mean to you?
Hmm. Um, I think it's like kind of built into this prayer, right? I wake up and I try to pray this every day, where it's like, Lord, give me the wisdom and the strength to do the thing that brings you honor and glory and me fulfillment. If I'm able to do that at the time I'm kicking up dust, if I was able to do that well, that's what I care about. I don't care,
Mm.
whether I have a big funeral, a small funeral. If I did my job
Mm.
here, uh, that's the legacy I'm aiming for. Is that I was
Yeah.
a servant.
Amazing. And where can people find you if they want to reach out to you or find out more about what you're doing now?
Yeah, my primary social media is Tim Branyan. On LinkedIn, you can find me there. My website's timbranyan.com, and those are probably two of the primary places to find it. You can probably Google Tim Branyan and find some of my stuff, but that's primarily it. If you want to
Amazing.
connect.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. I found it really insightful and valuable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark.